going to be getting your GIS map boundary lines into Google Earth along with getting a survey plat into Google Earth. So this first method is going to be using a imagery overlay. So we have our GIS map open. We also have Google Earth open. I went ahead and went to the area that this particular piece of property is going to be. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a snippet. You're going to get to the best zoom level possible. With this map, you can only go at pretty large increments at a time. So this is the piece of property we're going to be doing this demonstration on right here. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a snip and you're going to try to get like a road or any other kind of like benchmark, something you can reference on. You'll see what I'm talking about in a sec. So we're gonna go ahead and do this, and that's gonna disregard. Take a full snippet. I'm gonna go ahead and crop it. We really need this area, so get about like this. All right. So I went ahead and saved to my desktop. So we're gonna go to Google Earth. We're gonna do the imagery overlay right here. Go to our desktop. Here it is right here. All right. You can go ahead and move this dialog box out of the way. Don't close it though. So holding down shift is going to allow us to resize this in a proportionate way. So also hit U on your keyboard to keep everything at nadir. Because if you don't, you're going to start doing this number and it's going to make it a little bit more difficult to align it up. So we can see this road right here and this road right here. And also, what's going to help you out is lowering the opacity on this. So you can drop it down so you can begin to see the Google Earth imagery behind it. And also what you can do is use the time lapse viewer. So this imagery right here, this is on Google Earth, is 2021 imagery. And if we go back to our GIS map and go to layers, we can see that this is 2017 imagery. So to make it easier to line up, go to this time lapse. And I don't think that particular imagery is in here, the 2017 imagery. Yeah, looks like it's only, which is kind of odd, but okay. So we'll just use the 2021 imagery. So go back in here, turn this up a little bit. Okay. So we can see this shape of this pasture right here, is this right here. So we can attempt to line it up using these right angles right here. And that looks pretty decent. We're not going to get it perfect just for time. So it needs to get a little larger. All right, we're going to go with that. So you hit OK, and you can turn this on and off. And you can see we got it decently close. So what you can do from here is we'll say that if you wanted to go out in the real world, we'll say you have Google Maps or Google Earth on your phone, and you wanted this boundary on your phone if you're going to walk this property. What you do is, so from my experience, the imagery overlays don't transfer over if you save this as a KMZ or KML, um, which we'll get into in a second. So you actually need to draw these out with the actual polygon tool. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We'll go to add polygon, and you're essentially just going to trace this out. So on this, you can't really click and drag once you have the tool activated. All right. So this is not as precise as the next method that we're going to go into after this. So we'll just name this really quick. Call this the perimeter. All right, there you go. So now when you turn this off, and you can see how not quite lined up that is, because you can pretty much assume that this is the outline of the property, this tree line. So again, this is going to be not quite as precise. So to get into the much more precise way, so we'll go ahead and actually we'll keep this just so we can compare it later. So going back to GIS map, you can actually go in here and drop pins, and they'll give you the coordinates. So what you do is you come up to the ruler icon for this GIS website. I think they're usually going to be about the same. And you're going to click this. This gets you coordinates. So there's your mouse coordinates right there. But if you click, it'll drop a pin, and it'll then populate coordinates right here. So we're going to just start with this corner right here. There you go. So you're just going to copy this and paste it straight into Google Earth. And what you're going to do is start adding actual points on top of these pins. Okay. So you can do a place mark. Actually, to eliminate that step, so one way you could do it is drag this over and drop it on. What you could do is just paste it straight to those. So we'll close out this, open up the place mark tool, and we'll just call this, we'll say corner 1, C1. So those coordinates we already had pasted, we'll paste them in. And obviously you can't paste it directly into it, you got to do the two lines. So we'll just cut that portion and then paste it into here. And then hit OK. And that shifts it into this position right here. You can fast forward through, but we're going to go ahead and do the rest of the corners or pivot points. So this, you can actually see right here, there's probably a stake right about here, just based on how it's not a straight line. So we'll get that one too. Click there. Copy these. Corner 2. Paste it in. Cut it. Paste that in. And there it is. We'll zoom out some so we can see it as it goes. So we're just going to go all the way down here and get this corner. You can actually see it pivots again right here, so we'll get that one as well. There it is. I think we should be about 2 more corners. We'll be done with this. I believe we're on, yes, 7. All right, I believe this is the last one. All right. So now that is that correct? Let's see. I believe something happened here. So if something happens like that, just go into it in your places, get info, and go back and double check. So we'll get that coordinate again, paste it in. There we go. Not sure what happened there. I might have pasted the wrong thing. So now you have your basically your corners and any other place where the bearing shifts on your property line. So all you're going to go and do is the same process we did before as far as drawing out a polygon. So go to the polygon tool again. We'll call this perimeter 2 since we already got that 1. And we'll change this to a different color. All right. Now remember, you can't click and drag in this, so kind of got to rely on zooming in and out. Make sure hit U on your keyboard and make sure you're looking straight down. We can come over here and do the same thing. Okay. So we'll zoom out and we'll zoom in on our point. Click there, and then we're just going to go point to point. right. Last point. All right. Go ahead and hit OK. So now what you have is a pretty accurate drawing of your perimeter. You're only going to be as accurate as this GIS map overlay lines are, and they're fairly close, as you can tell. I'd probably say that this should be more over this way on this driveway. So there's a little bit of error, and then you have the error as far as how close you can get the tip of your mouse to the actual line. So with all that error, you're still going to be reasonably close. So now, if you wanted to, you could export this out as a KMZ. Which you would do like this. You go to your places and then save this out as a KMZ or a KML. And then what you could do is you could share that to yourself in the Google Earth app on your phone, whether it's an iPhone or Android, and then you could actually go in the real world and walk this property line. So one other thing, I haven't seen this talked about too much in other Google Earth videos. So a lot of county websites, I'm pretty sure for the most part, are going to have, so they have the GIS map like this, and they also have the deeds. So on this particular one, the link is right here at the top. And what this allows you to have access to is deeds and plats. They usually go back to, this one goes back to 1989. So if there's a survey done of property that's from the 80s or something, it's not going to be uploaded because that would be a stack of papers for the county office to upload onto their site. So for this piece of property, the plat is actually accessible. Here it is right here. It's from 2014. And then we're going to be going over how to get this plat right here into Google Earth. So it's going to be kind of like the same method as before. You're going to take a snip. So we'll full screen this. And the point of this is going to be finding pins. Okay, so from the GIS map, the only thing we got is really corners. So we can assume that there's going to be a pin there, and we have that taken care of just from our drawing. But what this doesn't cover is other pins that are located like this. Okay, so go ahead and full screen this and take a snip. And we're going to go in Photoshop or another kind of editing program and take out all this excess white. On MacBook, you can't really freeform snip, which would save us a lot of time if we could. So we'll go ahead and snip that. Bring it down. All right. So that's saved. Head over to Photoshop. Open it up. All right. So go ahead and zoom in some. Full screen it. We get the lasso tool. And we're just going to go around the edges. Not super close because you don't want to cut off these bearings and measurements, but just enough to get rid of all this excess white space in here. So we're going to do this, and then what we're going to do is hop over to Google Earth again and kind of use the same process as when we were lining up the snip of the GIS map into it. All right, so there it is. We don't need this layer, so we'll delete it. And we'll export this. All right, this is fine. All this plat to the desktop. All right. We're going to go back into Google Earth here. And once again, we're going to add an imagery overlay. Browse. That was a JPEG. There it is. So I think I did that because it's a JPEG. So let's go back, export this again. What I'm talking about is the white space around here. Cancel that. All right, there you go. So we learned something together. Make sure when you export it's a PNG. Okay, so again, what we're going to do is we're going to line the actual plat boundary lines up with our lines that we drew. And then what we're going to do is test and see how close we got it based off we're going to do some measurements on Google Earth and compare them to the measurements from the plat. What the plat says is basically the law because that's done by a surveyor, and it's going to be a lot more precise than what Google Earth can get it down to. So again, make sure we're looking straight down. Go ahead and zoom in here. This can get a little tedious because you'll line this up nice and perfect, then you'll scroll out, and you'll scroll into here, and you'll see that this is off a good bit. So it takes a little bit of time to do. This little diamond right here is for rotation. And we're not going to get it perfect. We will get it close. I think that looks pretty good. Turn the opacity down a little bit. All right, so that's what we're going to go with. So now what you have is the location of all your pins. All right, so we got even the calculated corners right here. That's something I forgot to mention. Make sure you're looking at the legend. So we'll open this plat back up. So our legend down here is talking about computed corners, found pins, and place pins. So you can see you have um, calculated corners throughout this, right here and here. So that's the good thing about the plat. On the GIS map, we couldn't see that this isn't this looks like a straight line, but it's not. The only thing we could see was this turn right here, but it actually turns again right here. We could see this one. You can't really see this. You can see here this is actually a slight turn because these bearings are off by a degree. All right, so now going back to this, since imagery overlays don't transfer, I believe, maybe they do, but for the practice of this, we'll say the imagery overlays don't transfer with a KMZ or a KML. What you can do is just go in here and we'll basically do some tracing again. So let's say you're going to go out and walk this property line, or you want to locate your pins. Let's say you didn't know where these two pins were, and you also want to know where these two calculated corners were. All you're going to do, getting pretty close. And you see this is starting to get pretty large. Like it's covering on the ground, this is covering like a decent amount of area. So this is only going to get you within probably 8 feet or so, maybe not even that. But it's get you in the general proximity. So we'll just call this IP an iron pin 1. All right. So we're just going to drag this over, drop it on there. Okay. Same process for this one. Call this iron pin 2. Drag this over, drop it on here. And then we can do these two calculated corners. Drag this over, try to get it centered. Call CC1 and then CC2. Okay. So now when we go in here and turn off this plat, you can see we're starting to develop this perimeter pretty well. We're getting all of our corners, and we're also getting the pins in between the corners. So something we can do to test this, test the accuracy and see how close we got it drawn, is turn on our plat again and compare this distance with the measurement in Google Earth. So on the plat, this is the actual measurement. This is what the distance from here to here is. Well, let's say we want to see how close we are. We're just going to pull the roller tool up, go to the center of this corner, and go to the center of this one. And we actually got it pretty close, so almost dead on the money. Wow, impressive. So what we got in Google Earth was 323, and we're off by not much, not even a foot. So we can try that for a couple points. So we'll go in a north-south direction now. We can do, I don't necessarily want to do it to one of these because these aren't going to be as accurate, but actually let's go ahead and try it. So distance from this pin to the pin that we dropped in here with a place mark is 202.91. So we'll clear this, go to this corner, and then go to this pin. So This right here is telling you how close you got as far as eyeballing it to the plat. And again, we're fairly close. Now, we'll turn this off. So at this point, you would be good to, unless you wanted to put all the different calculated corners on here and all the other pins that you wanted. At this point, you would be good to export this, okay, as KMZ or KML. And you could then walk this route on your phone. Something else you could do, we'll turn our plat back on. We could also walk it without a phone and I guess kind of do it old school way with a compass. So if you have the actual plat in hand, you could find your first point. We'll say you found this pin, okay, the one over by this driveway. So with the compass, you could start walking this. So you're going to be walking this direction, designated by the southwest heading, and you're going to actually need to do a little bit of math. All right. You're going to use this formula. You can go ahead and pause the video. So with this heading, we'll turn this on its side so it's easier to read. So we're going to be walking in a southwest direction in relation to north, which is up. We'll do some math, and this will give you a bearing. And it's actually a bearing that you can see in Google Earth. So we'll bring back Google Earth and turn this off. From this calculated corner to this pin, let's get a bearing really quick, is 186 degrees. So if you're there with your compass, that's the direction you should be heading. If you did this math and follow these steps, that should be what you get for your compass. And again, we're within a few feet. Okay. All right, so that basically summarizes this process of getting a plat and property lines and locating pins. There's a few different methods. The coordinate method that we went over for the second method, as far as getting the coordinates using the pins, that's probably going to be your most accurate way. And then also overlaying your plat can help you find your pins, all of them, and the calculated corners and other things you want to locate. Additionally, we went over register of deeds. So if you ever want to find a plat, that is your way to go. All right, that concludes the video. Thanks.